Hello everyone and welcome back to the Where in the World series here on Go Westeros. In this episode, just like we did last time, we'll be looking at 3 minor houses of Westeros, what they've been up to, where in the world they are, and how they pertain to the overall story as it's being told. Last episode, we looked at houses Marbrand, Darry and Swan. In this episode, we'll be looking at House Umber from the north, House Piper from the Riverlands, and House Rosby of the Crownlands. The Umbers are one of the North's most powerful families. In fact, the A Song of Ice and Fire wiki states that they are fiercely loyal to the Starks. They make their home at Last Hearth, which serves as the last major stop before getting to the Wall and the end of the world. Their words are not known, but their sigil is a roaring giant head wearing a skin with broken chains on a flame-red shield. It's often said that the Umbers have giant blood in them because they are often very large people. They hold the harsh land along the Bay of Seals, south along the New Gift, extending west to the King's Road. Their lands include the Last River and the Lonely Hills. In history, the Umbers once ruled as First Men Kings. After numerous struggles, they were reduced to vassals by the Starks and have been, as said, fiercely loyal to them ever since. And due to their proximity to the Wall, Last Hearth and its lands are at high risk of raiding by the wildlings, something the Umbers often have to deal with. Famous of these wildlings they have warred against are Raymond Redbeard, the King Beyond the Wall, and the brothers Gendel and Gorn. The Night's King is rumoured to have originally been an Umber, like most northern families claim for themselves. During Robert's Rebellion, the Umbers followed Lord Eddard Stark to war, with both of Mor's Umber's sons dying at the Trident. Current named members of House Umber include Lord John, called the Great John, his son and his heir, the Small John. Great John's uncles, one called Mor's Growfood, and the other Horsebane Hother. When we come to A Song of Ice and Fire, House Umber were one of the first houses to answer Robb Stark's call to arms when Eddard Stark is arrested. The Great John leads his men south with Robb, whilst Mors and Hother remain as castellans of Last Hearth. Despite an initial argument between the Great John and Robb, he becomes one of the young wolf's staunchest supporters. The Small John rides as one of Robb's personal guards, in fact. The Great John is given independent command at the Battle of the Whispering Wood and in the subsequent Battle of the Camps. They ride in from the west with the Mallisters and set fire to the Lannister siege towers. Following the death of Lord Eddard, the Great John is the first to proclaim Robb as king in the north. In a clash of kings, the Umber men accompany King Robb on his campaign in the Westerland. The Great John is noted to have captured several gold mines after the Battle of Oxcross. The Small John even leads men to scale the walls during the storming of the Crag. Up in the north, Mors and Hother attend the harvest feast at Winterfell. Hother requests ships to fight wildlings in the Bay of Seals and is told to work with Lord Wyman Manderley of White Harbour to build a fleet. And when the subject of the widowed Danelle Hornwood's next marriage arises, Mors puts his name forward, but is rejected. When Theon Greyjoy captures Winterfell, he tells Asha, his sister, that the Umbers are gathering beyond the Last River to help liberate the Stark castle. But when Sir Roderick Castle arrives with his army, there are no Umbers. When we come to A Storm of Swords, both the Great John and Small John are still with Robb in the south. When Lord Rickard Karstark murders the Lannister boys, Great John and Small John subdue him. Great John punches Rickard in the face when he addresses his king, Robb, as boy. Don't mess with the Starks in full view of the Umbers. That means he hangs the other Karstark men who took part in the murders. At the Red Wedding, the Great John gets drunk, competing with Sir Waylon and Merritt Frey. When everything kicks off, it takes 8 men to subdue him, of which he kills 1, injures 2, and bites half an ear off Sir Leslin Haig. The Great John is then imprisoned in the Twins. Unfortunately, his son, the Small John, is murdered by men of House Bolton. It's unknown who the current heir of Last Hearth is. presumably Moors or Hothor, but it's never explicitly stated. In A Dance of Dragons, we hear from Cersei, who claims the imprisoned Great John has grudgingly joined with Roose Bolton, the new warden in the north, and that is only partly true. Hothor Horsebane leads half of the remaining Umber men under the Bolton banner, although Roose considers them untrustworthy, and on the flip side, Moor's Crowfood joins Stannis' cause. Moors makes it clear that Umber will never fight another Umber. Hothor leads 300 spears and 100 archers south to Moat Cailin. He later commands the Umber contingent at Winterfell for the wedding of Ramsay Bolton and Arya Stark, who is of course actually Sansa's friend Jane Paul. The Umber men with Moors in Stannis' cause camp outside the castle, outside the castle, and blow their horns to disorient the Bolton force. After they escape, Theon and Jane are brought by Moors to the Crofters' village. Now there are some information about the Umbers in the sample chapters of The Winds of Winter. However, I've not read them. I've chosen not to read them until the book is released. I'd like to save it all until it is eventually released. So I'm kind of off at Dance of Dragons there. Won't discuss The Winds of Winter, so we'll just have to wait on that one. Brave and beautiful are the words of House Piper of Pink Maiden. Their sigil is a pink dancing maid in a swirl of white silk on a field of blue. Their seat, Pink Maiden Castle, is located on the Red Fork of the Trident, south of Riverrun. The current named members of House Piper include the Lord Clement, his son and heir Sir Mark, who is noted to be good friends with Ed Matally, and Clement's younger son, Lewis Piper, a squire. There isn't much history of House Piper, aside from a small snippet. In the War of Conquest, the Pipers joined Aegon the Conqueror against King Harald the Black, who ruled both the Iron Islands and the Riverlands from the giant fortress of Harrenhal. We first hear of this house when their arms are seen amongst a gathering of knights during the Hands tourney in A Game of Thrones. Later, Ed Matally commands Lord Vance and Lord Clement Piper to guard the path below the Golden Tooth, where the Lannisters start to mass their troops. Sir Mark Piper, along with Sir Carl Vance and Sir Raymond Dowery, go to King's Landing to report to King Robert about the raids and the attacks of the mountain. They are given witness by Lord Eddard Stark instead. To close out their involvement in the first book, Lord Clement is forced to flee the Golden Tooth when the Westermen descend on the Riverlands, killing Lord Vance. The mountain, elsewhere, even burns the Piper lands, including Pink Maiden Castle, under orders of Tywin Lannister. Sir Mark Piper is given leave of Riverrun, accompanied by Sir Carl Vance and 50 men, to raid the Lannister supply trains. The Piper's dancing maiden is spotted by Catelyn Stark in a camp north of Tumblestone upon her return to the south. In the Storm of Swords, Sir Mark is one of the 7 who launch Hoster Tully's funeral boat from Riverrun. He later travels to the Twins for the wedding of his friend Edma to a Frey girl. Edma is now the Lord of Riverrun. Mark is accompanied by 5 knights who are cousins and nephews of his Lord Father, Clement. Mark is captured by the Freys at the Red Wedding. However, the fates of him and his men are unknown to this time. Following that, Lord Clement sends a troop of men to King's Landing to bend the knee. In A Feast for Crows, Book 4, Lewis Piper, one of Lord Clement's youngest sons, is named one of Sir Jaime Lannister's squires. Jaime spots the Piper banners amongst other Riverlords who have bent the knee and are now aiding House Lannister in sieging Riverrun. Lord Clement sits on Jaime's war council. And that's it, not a very long recap of the Pipers. As mentioned before, that will tend to happen as not all houses are given lengthy stories, but I would like to see them in the future. The Pipers do have my interest. And now we come to our final house of the episode, the Rosbys from the Crownlands. Their words are not known, and their sigil are 3 downward pointed red stripes on a field, on a white and black patterned field. And I'll be honest, it's damn hard to describe this one. Their seat is Rosby, a castle north of Blackwater Bay. It sits just northeast of King's Landing. The Rosby Road is the shortest road between the capital and the town of Duskendale. There is a village surrounding the castle. There are only 2 known Rosbys throughout the story, including Lord Giles, a sickly old man who coughs frequently, and an unknown relation called Bethany, who was the seventh wife of Lord Walder Frey, mother to Perwyn, Benfrey, Williman, Oliver, and Rosalind Frey. In history, the Pipers were one of the first houses to yield peacefully to House Targaryen. They surrendered to Queen Rhaenys and her dragon Meraxes. The Lord Rosby at this time was named Warden of the Sands by King Aegon during the First Dornish War. He was bound and gagged and thrown out of the Spear Tower at Sunspear by the blind Princess Maria Martell herself. The Rosbys supported the Blacks during the Dance of the Dragons. Rhaenyra Targaryen had the Lord Rosby killed during the fall of King's Landing. When we come to the recent events of A Song of Ice and Fire, we first see the Rosbys in the second book, A Clash of Kings. Lord Giles is frequently seen in the court of King's Landing, always coughing. He conspires with Queen Cersei to take Prince Tommen out of the city and to keep him at Rosby disguised as a page, so Tyrion won't hurt him or use him as leverage. Tyrion considers Lord Giles too sickly to run and too craven to fight. Sir Jacelyn Bywater lays a trap along the Rosby Road and Lord Giles is captured. Tyrion places Tommen under house arrest at Rosby by his own men instead of Cersei's. So he does end up using him as leverage, but all in while keeping Tommen safe. In A Storm of Swords, Lord Giles is among the gathered nobility to welcome the Dornish party headed by Prince Oberyn Martell to King's Landing. Later, Giles testifies at Tyrion's trial for the death of King Joffrey, stating that he had seen Tyrion filling the wedding chalice. In A Feast for Crows, Lord Giles is named Master of Coin under the title of Lord Treasurer by Queen Regent Cersei. He promises Cersei that he will have a statue made of the deceased Lord Tywin to be placed by the Lion Gate in King's Landing. Giles attends the wedding of Tommen and Marjorie Tyrell. At Rosby Castle, Lord Giles's ward refuses Lady Felice Stokeworth and her husband Sir Balmond Birch shelter. According to Felice, should Lord Giles die, the land and earnings of Rosby should go to House Stokeworth, since the Lady Tanda was an aunt to Lord Giles's second wife and is a third cousin herself. Later, Lord Giles does die at King's Landing due to his violent cough. He has no immediate heir, but his ward, who is not of his blood, had a claim on his castle. Of course, we talk about House Stokeworth in a previous episode, so you can go check that out if you want to know about them. In A Dance of Dragons, the issue of the castle's succession is raised by Grand Maester Pycelle. Here he states that there are 6 claimants, but Sir Kevin Lannister tables the idea, and thus ending House Rosby's involvement in the story so far. Will we see the resolution or the succession in future books? As a passing note, probably, but I don't expect them to play a larger part in the story going forward. So as we wrap up on House Rosby, we wrap up on this episode of Where in the World. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found at least some of what I said helpful in your quest to gain as much knowledge of this world as possible. Remember to find me on Twitter at GoWesteros. Drop me a comment, a tweet, some advice, some criticism, or just say hello. I've been Jack, your host, and I'll see you all later.